Hey guys, this is Perks, and you're watching Thorin's YouTube channel. I would like you guys to appreciate his YouTube channel, even though he talks sometimes so much that not even I can handle it. But most of the time it's pretty funny and entertaining.
When you got to have River, if people don't know, like, look, I already knew this guy when he was on PSG, but I even think the year before when he was on Dignitas, he just showed he's just a really good fucking player, mate. Like, that Dignitas team was a mess of a roster, but you could just see this guy's just really fucking good. And, like, if people don't remember, in the last year when this team was together in 2023, all the other players in the LCS were saying this is the best jungler. Like, by the way, over Blabber and people like that were like the MVP players. Like, everyone said this guy's cracked. Like, what were your thoughts playing with him?
River's awesome. I love River. I loved playing with him. I think we had a really good relationship. We were really excited to play with each other again this year, and it didn't work out. But he's a really, really smart player. Like, I think he understands the game at like a really high level. He basically like plays. It's like he plays your lane for you, and it's not like he plays your lane for you, but it's like he knows when he should be there. Like, you don't have to tell him anything. Like,
Okay.
he has enough understanding of how like lane matchups work and bot lane and mid lane that he just like knows when he should be there, and he
It's
just
pretty
shows up.
unusual, right? Pretty unusual talent for an LCS
Yeah.
jungler to have.
No, I think it's the thing that makes him like the best, right? Like, he knows where he's supposed to be. He knows when he's supposed to be there, and he shows up and he does the right thing. And it's like, it just makes the game so easy. It's like so easy to play with River. He's really good at identifying like what his win condition is, how the lane's supposed to go, where he's supposed to be, who's going to play around. And in terms of like supporting his team to win, I think like especially in 2023, he was the best jungler in the league.
Did you have any kind of an unusual dynamic with him relative to other junglers in the past? Like, did he seem to get you especially well?
I just think it was a really good fit for both of us, because I think like I said earlier, I'm a player that's generally more quiet, but like I'm really good at laning and winning my lane and just like being a solid top laner. So then like River came in and he was like, oh, like I don't even know if he noticed that I didn't talk that much, because he like didn't need me to talk that much, and just like we just like fit really well, because like I think all that a player like River needs to succeed is winning lanes. And that's something that I'm really good at providing. So I think that we were just like a really solid combo.
Right. Obviously, now everyone will tell you that Golden Guardians lineup was awesome and they believed in them all, and Jazz and all the NA fans. But everyone forgets in that spring split last year, you guys weren't supposed to be the ones in the final go to MSI. Like, there was plenty of other teams that were maybe Evil Geniuses, their superstar roster, 100 Thieves. You know, there's lots of big names. Like, what for you? What was the turnaround? How did this team go from being like good in the regular split to like an actual elite team? What happened?
I don't know. I think Gori was really good. I think that was a surprise to a lot of people. I think he struggled in summer, especially as we got into playoffs, but spring split, he was maybe the best mid laner in the league as well.
That's fair, right?
So I think like that was a huge thing. Like, to what you said earlier, I think they did like the power rankings at the start of the split, and I think across the board, Golden Guardians was 8th. They said we were the 8th place team.
Okay.
Like, we weren't 9th and 10th, but we were 8th, and that was like across the board. So we definitely overperformed like public perception. And yeah, I don't know. People like to say that at the start of spring, I was one of the worst top laners in the league.
You got flamed quite hard, right? Yeah.
And started playing much better. I think that the perception, I don't think there was nearly as big a gap as people say there was. Like, I think that I was playing a solid top lane game all of spring split, and then I got into playoffs and I started playing better. And then all of a sudden I was like a top player in the league as opposed to just like solid. So I think that was part of it, but I don't know. Again, I just think that like we like solved our things at the right, like we went through that like downwards thing. We had some like really difficult weeks in spring split. We were a really streaky team, and we just like ended up having this kind of like momentum coming into playoffs, and we just did really well. We were clicking as a team, and I think everyone was playing really well.
I just like the way in the final your picks are Malphite or Kennen. Like, what fucking year is this? Like, what the fuck? That's your champion pool this time. That's okay. Was this a winnable final?
I don't know. I mean, I want to say yes, and I mean, I just like for me, and I think for a lot of other people, we just kind of ran out of gas. Like we ran out of energy. We had this isn't something I talked about before, and it's because I hate like doing like the playing the excuse game of like, oh, like this went wrong, and but like I think that like we had some issues with our flight getting over. We ended up when we got to Raleigh, we got there at like 3 a.m. when we were supposed to land at like 8 p.m. So like that was difficult. We had like a weird week of scrims, and like I think that like I was able, at least for myself, speaking for myself, I was able to perform really well in the FlyQuest match, and I just didn't feel like I had that same level of energy going into the C9 match. And I do think that like being up really late and having that like affect my sleep and was a factor. Do I think that it was like if that changed we would win the match suddenly? Like I don't know, probably not, but I don't think we were like totally outclassed in that series. Like I don't think it was like a one-sided stomp or like the games were like unplayable, but it just felt like on that day we didn't have it for whatever reason.
Did you actually think yourself, though, after making the final? Like, did you reflect on any of the stuff like before, like everyone hating on you or saying you should be fired from your job, etc.? Do you care about stuff like that? Do you like to get your own back?
Not really. I mean, again, it's like I don't think that trash talking or getting involved in the like in that like yeah in the like trash talk game actually helps me play better. So I generally just avoid it, and I just like if I'm gonna play against TL this split, I'm just gonna mute APA at the start of the game and just like like I'm just like I'm not gonna deal with that. And like I think it's like for me and the way I'm organized, it's just healthier for me to not. So I don't like. I think when I first started, I would like read a lot of it and then get upset and say things back and get involved, and it just like didn't do anything positive for me. So I just don't anymore.
I realise if you're a pro, on some level, it has to be like a match-to-match, day-to-day type thing where you just think of the current present moment. But obviously, in my career, I like the romance of narratives and like storyline stuff. Right? To me, the cool thing about getting to go to this MSI is if you think earlier on, obviously you had an MSI stolen from you. You had that one where you should have gone after Cloud9. Like back in the day, you obviously had to win to go to MSI. You got one taken away from you. Like in some ways, this one's, like I said, no one expected this one to happen in 2023 on fucking Golden Guardians. Like, it's kind of cool. You got like given an MSI back, as it were. It might be just my romantic way of looking at it, but what do you think? It was kind of cool to get to go to one, right?
Yeah, no, it was awesome to go to MSI, and I think that MSI specifically was really cool because I felt really on top of my game, and I think that like it really fulfilled this dream for me of like I felt like I was the best performing player from North America at MSI, at least at specific moments. And I think that was just really cool for me. Like I think to be able to say like I was the best performing player for my region at an international tournament, I think it was a really big moment for me. And it was cool to go there. I think I wish we could have done better. We had the salty rematch against Cloud9 and we ended up losing again, and I think that we were just like struggling to play together as a team, which like showed up more and more in summer and in summer playoffs. But yeah, no, it was cool. And I mean, felt very fortunate too that it was like the first time they were like 2 teams go. We were like, great,
sure,
we get to go, So that was awesome.
By the way, as you say, I actually do think if you asked people to list the narratives coming out of MSI, number 1 would actually be Licorice was actually like the best fucking LCS player. Like you actually sort of like flip the dynamic, as it were. And in fact, if people forget, this is where I can tell people just look at a bracket and they go, oh, 3-0, who cares? Like Dude, bear in mind you guys had to play the eventual champions, JDG. That is a way closer 3-0 than people realize. It wasn't just like from minute 1 to the end, they just stopped you completely. Like, first of all, in the first game, you guys were even getting kills early on. Like, it was actually starting to look like it was getting spicy. And as you say, actually, individually, you did pretty well. Remember, at the time, everyone said 369 is like the best player in the world at top lane. And in fact, famously at the time, it's supposedly from both angles. Like, you either can wreck one a tank or you can just carry. So, how would you evaluate this? Look, obviously, it was unrealistic to actually think you're going to beat JDG, but I think this is a closer game than people remember.
Yeah, no, I think we had a close series against them. I think that like if we were able to play a little bit better in team fights, or just like there was one game, I think it was either game 1 or 2, where game 3 we don't talk about game 3 here, but game 1 and 2, there was a moment where we had like a 5k gold lead and we were like playing around Baron, and we just like, I think it was like Stixay got caught and we ended up like dying and losing Baron, and that was like the turning point for the game. And it's like, if that doesn't happen, we're in a really good position to take the game off JDG. And like it felt like a good series. I think, like, from my perspective, it didn't, like, I've played in series where you just like, it's hopeless and you can't win, and that series wasn't one of them. So I think it was actually, we were doing really well at MSI.
Give me some thoughts on what happened in the summer split after this, because here's the problem. Retroactively, look, it's not that big a deal to lose to NRG. It turned out everyone lost to NRG at the end. Like, that's okay. That one's not the end of the world. The Team Liquid one's the bit more sus one for me, because obviously people know at that time, like, this is why I want to ask you specifically. There's a reason why that Summit guy was the MVP on Cloud9, then not even in the LCS, and then he was on Team Liquid and he looked great again, then he's not in the LCS again. I've heard this guy, like, it's like the what everyone tries to make, it's what every other role tries to make top lane sound like in solo queue. Like, give me my pick and all the farm and all that. I'm just going to carry this whole fucking game because I'm the only good one in this. I was like, here's the thing. I actually kind of low-key dig that though, like, as like a wrestling like villain angle. Like, this guy really did seem like he was the top laner. Like, I'm the god emperor, just give me everything. So what was it like to play against this guy? Because here's the thing. Everyone memed on him, mate, but he was really strong in some ways, right? Summit, the top laner.
Yeah. No, I mean, Summit was someone I struggled with for years. Like, he's, like you said, he was here for a while and then he wasn't here and then he was back again. I think that, like, he generally got the better of me for most of our matchups. But then in that summer playoffs, I felt like I was the better top laner. Like, I think that I like had gotten to the point where I was like really solid, felt really confident in my play, and I was just like the better top laner and I was playing better than him. And it wasn't enough to win either, and that was really hard. I think that Gori had a really hard like end of summer split and playoffs. Like, I think, like, for whatever reason he like lost some of his confidence. He wasn't playing as well, and he just like seemed really shaky heading into playoffs. And then I think that our team just kind of like started having random problems. Like, I mean, like we did lose to NRG, and you know, everyone lost to NRG, but in that series, like, I think everyone had some really uncharacteristic plays that they were going for. Like there was one game where we like hit a lane swap and we were setting up a top dive on Dokla, and River just like jumped in and died randomly. Like he had a weird play. I think I had some like really bad deaths on Rumble, especially where I was like trying to overforce in the enemy jungle and just like trying to overplay. Like, I think we just lost faith in each other as a team, and it was like everyone felt like they needed to do something special in order to win. And just like, I think that, I mean, and that's like always more of a symptom of the actual problem too, where it's like there's a problem and then people try to do things to fix it, and I don't know, we just kind of fell apart again. So yeah.
Because the most cursed thing about losing that fifth game and coming fourth is you got in like the worst position ever, where it's like, depending on how technical we're getting, technically you got to Worlds, but like you sort of didn't, because you had to win that match to get through against BDS. Obviously you played against them and lost, right? What I want to ask is this. I've even heard like this. The problem is, even though I actually think the premise, I know they got rid of it now, I thought the premise was quite clever. Like everyone wants to see a best of 5 between a good NA and a good EU team, and also it's kind of a cool angle, like, put the stakes of like, do you get worlds? That all sounds great. The flaw is the timing of how they set it up seems a bit scuffed. Like it was like one day before the actual worlds or something, and then like, so in a way you like fly out to play this one match. Even then, it's up to the teams. Do they fly out immediately? Do they go one day before? And then if you win, you're in the tournament. If you're not, that's it. There's no worlds. Like it just seems like a really weird setup in that sense. What was it like on your side? Like, did the team actually, were you able to prep for this properly? Was there enough time? What do you think of the whole setup?
I mean, we had it. I mean, we just prepped for it like we were going to Worlds, right? Like it's like imagine we're a Plains team and we're prepping for one day later. Like we just prepped like that. But it did feel really strange to go. And I mean, obviously it ended up just like sucking because we went and boot camped for the tournament, played one game, had like a bad series and just went home. So that's going to be a punch in the gut after I've prep all that time. And also it was like, man, like our team was just like falling apart, right? So it's like we were like falling apart in summer, and like we got to playoffs and we just like were really struggling to play together, and then like we were like had to go to Worlds anyways, and like I think like internally the vibe wasn't good, and the expectation was like maybe we beat BDS, but like we're probably like we were not a team that was gonna like make a deep run at the Worlds tournament or go back to like semis or anything like that. It was just like, oh, like I hope we can get it together, and we just didn't. So I mean, it wasn't a very fun experience from my point of view.
The other problem is this, which is, right, if there's ever a player where this applies to, it has to be Adam from BDS. He looks like a player, Licorice, because I've known too many really good players who've lost to this guy in LEC. He looks like the player where it's like, you have to already play him to know how to play him, if you know what I mean. Like, he's one of the most idiosyncratic players probably ever in the West. Like, he lives on another planet. He has his own vision of top playing and what pressure is and what champions are good and what matchup is even good. Like, give me some thoughts on playing this guy. It looks like a very hard guy to prepare for.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard to prepare for because I didn't feel like I could even get good practice.
I mean, who the fuck even plays those matchups, right? Who plays Darius into everything or whatever? Like, no one, right?
Yeah, and of like preparing for the matchups, and it's like, I mean, even talking about like the Jax versus Garen matchups, it's like right. I've played that matchup and I don't like it because I know, like, I think if the Jax plays really well, Garen loses, but then they like set up the game where his jungler, whose name I don't even remember right now. Yeah, he went for an early invade so that he could like do an early cheese gank and put me behind so the Garen could start scaling, and like it was like I wasn't ready for things like that in the game, and I think because of that, I think it is like what you said. It's like you learn when you play him the first time and you lose, and then you're like, okay, I'm not going to do that, and then it doesn't work as well the next time. So I do think he was a really challenging player to prep for, but I also think like I wasn't in the same form that I was in summer split and in playoffs, and like I think if I'd been able to keep that form the whole time, then I think the series would have looked different. But like I don't even know if we win that because again, it just felt like Golden Guardians was just such a mess at that time.
The problem is the actual timing couldn't be worse, obviously, relative to your career, because like the summer's gone a bit dodgy, like we say. You guys come fourth in the LCS, so nothing big there. You go to this thing, like I said, the downside of it is the whole fan appeal is like, hey, it's NA versus EU. Well, the last thing you want to do is be the one who let all the fucking NA fans like, oh, see you guys, we suck, lol. And then after that, like the team literally just doesn't exist anymore. Like that's going to be the most ridiculous, like compounding of horrible things that can happen in one off season. Because basically, as far as I know, you had that nightmare scenario where it's like you thought you had your job for this year, and then you just found out there is no job. Like it's just gone, right? It's just disappeared overnight.
Yeah, no, that is pretty much exactly what happened. They told us the morning of the announcement, which was 2 weeks before the end of free agency, and before that time, they did give us like Anero was like. He's like, I'm not getting clear budget numbers for next year, and they might want to go full budget. So, like, you guys do have permission to talk to teams. So I was able to talk to teams before that point. I spoke to a bunch of teams. didn't actually seem like there was a lot of interest out there and like teams that I wanted to join. So I came back to him. I was like, hey, like I'd rather stay with the Golden Guardians and you guys. Like I like you. I like Sam, who was the head coach at the time. I want to keep playing for you guys, even if that means like I'm getting paid less or I'm playing with a bunch of rookies. Like that's my choice. So that's kind of where we were heading. And then at some point that changed to like trying to put together some kind of roster that involved me and Spica and Sven, because we were kind of like the top players that were available at the time. So that was kind of like the new plan heading in. And then it was like one morning they got us all in a call and we're like, yeah, so the Golden Guardians are leaving the LCS and it's going to be announced in like 4 hours later today. And that's it.
Even though as people who saw the beginning of the interview know, it worked out. Like in the end, you got a team again, and it's okay. You haven't had to burn a whole year at Serra. But was there a part of you worried, like if I just stay on the bench, like if you're out of sight, out of mind, right? People can forget about you, or they fall in love with some other player. Did you ever worry like I'm just not going to be in LCS again?
I wasn't super worried that I'd never be in LCS again, but it was like I thought that with the 2023 that I'd have a really easy time finding a team. Like I thought that from spring playoffs onwards, I was a clear top laner in the league. And teams weren't that interested. Like when I first reached out and like was able to talk to teams, like people weren't actually that interested in working with me. So that was when I started to get really worried. I was like, oh my God, am I going to be able to find a team? Like I thought it would be really easy. I thought that like lots of teams would be interested. I thought I played really well and people would want to work with me, and it just like wasn't happening. And I was like, oh shit, like am I going to have some problems? And then I didn't find a team for spring. And then I was like, oh my God, like I really hope I'm going to be able to find a team for summer, because like I sat out spring and it's like you sit out 4 months, right? But if I don't find a team for summer, that's another 8 months that I'm not being a pro player. And at that point, it's like I can't just sit around and do nothing. Like I'm gonna have to get a job. I'm gonna have to like find something to do, whether it's like streaming or working, or like I have to really reevaluate my life at that point. And I was feeling really worried because a lot of teams that I talked to were like, we think you're good, but we want to commit to our players and give them a shot to play out a full year. And I'm like, okay, like I understand that, and like I might be a little biased. I think you're being stupid right now. I think I'm better and you should pick me up. But that was the response I got from a few places, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm able to find a team. And Dig was the only team that wanted to pick me up, and I'm like really, really grateful that I was able to get the spot.
One of your teammates who was originally in the same spot, but he obviously ended up getting the spot on NRG, was huhi, the support player. I want to ask about this player, actually, because even though obviously famously he's a role swap, he used to be mid laner himself, I actually think in Golden Guardians, he's also another player who was sort of like sleeper, like mad underrated. Like he looked mega in this team, mate.
Yeah, I mean, he was a really, really good player. I think that there's a few things that that I found challenging about playing with him. But I think that like in terms of just like, I mean, especially looking at Spring Split, I think he was like, I think he won first team All Pro in Spring Split. Like I think he was just like, he was the best support, and there wasn't really like, it wasn't close. Like there wasn't someone people were comparing him to, like, oh, it's like really close between huhi and this other guy. It was like, no, he's just the best. So he was a really, really good player. But I think that like it was challenging to work with him. I think like his champion pool is really strange, and he doesn't, or like at the time on Golden Guardians, he wasn't really like practicing a lot of the really meta stuff, and he always wanted to pull out some weird counter pick, which was really good sometimes. Like I think we played like the Amumu, was it Amumu Tristana or something? Like he was playing Amumu support in playoffs, and it looked really, really good. But there's like other times where it just like, it doesn't look as good. Like I think he had like some Zac games, or this split he played some Wukong, or like I think he has a hard time just like actually practicing meta champions, which was one of the problems we ran into. And he also just like isn't the most. I mean, he just isn't the like nicest teammate. Like I'm not trying to say he's like really
Seems
toxic
super
or
chill.
anything,
Fair enough. Okay.
but I don't know. It's funny because yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't really like. I'm not someone who wants to go in and like flame someone on the show.
No, it's all
but
good.
It's just like, yeah, I don't know. I just think that like, yeah, he just wasn't the nicest teammate to play with.
By the way, are you someone where, when you're in a team, do you want there to be like, ideally I'm friends with everyone or I have some relationship? Are you okay to just be like a pro sportsman and be like, hey, I put my jersey on, you put your jersey on, play the game after that, don't worry about it? Like, where do you come down on that kind of on that spectrum, as it were?
I think I don't feel the need to be really close friends with all of my teammates, but I think that it's really important to me that everyone respects each other as like just like we're all pro players and it's like a difficult job and like don't make it harder kind of thing, you know? Like it's like and of course I think that line is really difficult to find because like if you're trying to have those difficult conversations of like the conversations you need to have, then like sometimes you're going to come on too strong or sometimes you're not going to come on strong enough. And it's always a balancing act. But I just think like the teams that I want to play on, I just want everyone to actually be trying to support each other. Like I think that's kind of where I draw the line. It's like I want to support everyone to be better, and I want them all to support me to be better. And I think that's kind of like we don't need to be good friends, but just like let's work together well.
By the way, in that sense, what was the vibe like in Golden Guardians? Because when you have players like River and Gori, like they're people who've had to fucking grind in their careers and be in all different regions. And I can imagine Gori's been in the fucking pressure cooker, mate. If you look at some of the regions he's played in, some of the teams he was a part of, like what was the vibe playing with it? Like were they actually super serious? Were they diligent? Were there able to be fun elements to the environment too?
Gori is a grinder, like in every sense of the word. Gori is like the epitome of like a league grinder. One of the things that he said when he joined the team is he's like, I don't want to do team activities. I only want to play solo queue. They were like, okay. They're like, all right, man. Like if that. And like Gori was a really hard worker, and he loved playing solo queue. He loved playing League of Legends, and he basically didn't like doing anything else. So like they'd force him to go to a team dinner every once in a while, and that was pretty much it. Otherwise, he'd just play the game. And River was pretty similar. He wanted to start going to the gym. So those were like the two things he did. He went to the gym and he played League of Legends. But as far as the way the team functioned, we had a bit of what we called the Korean committee, where the three Koreans would kind of like figure out. They'd like talk to each other and figure out what their thoughts were on everything, and then they'd like bring it together. So they were like kind of the committee, and they
did you vibe with that? Were you cool with that?
It was. I'm gonna say it wasn't ideal. Like I think, I don't know. Like they would always decide what they thought the problem was or what needed to be changed. There was a point where like they were like, "Oh, we think top lane's the problem. He's not playing very well." So like,
brilliant. Yeah, cheers.
So we like his laning's not very good. So we want him to play tanks, and I was like, and I talked to my coach about it. I was like, "Hey man, like I don't think they're right."
Bro, that's like every top laner's nightmare out there. Yeah, the rest of the teams had a conversation. Since we don't play top lane, we think you should just be a tank. Like, brilliant, thanks. Yeah, can I be in that convo? What the fuck? Like, I love it.
Yeah, so I talked to my coach, and I was like, "Hey man, like I don't think this is like I'm down to do it. I've learned my lesson. I will be Gimgoon if I have to be. But I really don't actually think this is the right fit for our team. But like I'll play Sion, and we'll see what happens, right? And I think we're gonna lose. But if we win, like then I'll just keep playing Sion, and that's what's gonna happen." And I played Sion. We went 0-2, and I went back to my coach. I was like, "Yeah, no, like I'm 100% sure I was right. We lost to like some of the bottom teams. I think it was like Dignitas at the time, like they were maybe like 8th or 9th place, and we lost to them. And I was like, all right, like this is clearly not the thing that we need to be doing to win. But I think they were pretty hard on Trevor or Stixay for a lot of the year. So I think that is something that he had to deal with on the team, and he did have a little bit of that like Gimgoon kind of role in the team. But yeah, I mean that was kind of the dynamic. And then I think that in summer, when Gori stopped playing as well, it just like the Korean committee kind of fell apart, and then like no one really knew what was going on in the team anymore, and there like wasn't a clear idea of like who was in charge in a way, or like what the pecking order was anymore, and it just like I don't know, just kind of like became some kind of mess.
By the way, a question I have for you, very specific to you, based on what I know about you from interviews and see you on broadcast, etc., is there's a lot of Western players, mainly North Americans, but I'll tell you what, there's a lot of Europeans as well that are like this, Licorice, where they might in interviews say all the right things before Worlds, or I'm like, hey, I'm going to clap Faker and all that. But like, I can tell you they're all lying. Like almost all of them, to a man, they've gone to that boot camp, and I always tell people the boot camp kills the whole tournament when it's Worlds, right? Because for 2 weeks, you just get destroyed by like the story earlier. Sometimes not even the best Korean team. Maybe like Kwangdong Freaks or something just sticks around and fucking tools everyone for a week and makes every Western team like, well, fuck, we can't even beat them. How am I even going to beat Gen G? So like, I always say, if fans only knew how brutal like the solo queue grind plus those scrim weeks are, like it kills a lot of teams' morale before the first match ever even begins in the main event. But the difference is though, Licorice, when I not only look at how people have played, but actually like how they seemed to go into the tournament, you actually do seem like one of the few Western players who believes it is plausible you can beat your lane opponent when it's some amazing Chinese or Korean player, or even if their team is better in their region. But if we do the right things and we play the right, it's possible to win. You at least seem to have that mindset. Am I right?
Yeah, no, I would say I've been very proud of my performance against like the Eastern top laners, and just like being able to hold my own and not just like completely fall apart. And I mean, I think a big part of it comes from my focus on lane phase and just like how much I care about it, because I think that in the West you can get by and you can win regions without having like a fully developed lane phase, and you can like get by with just like having your teammates help you out, or just like not really knowing the ins and outs of how it works. And I think like I don't want to rag on him, but I'm going to give Fudge as an example for this, because this is something that I've thought about so much, because like he replaced me on C9. I've played against him a lot since then, and he generally has gotten the better of me, even though I feel like his laning phase has always been weaker than mine. And it's like, I don't know, like it is something that has bothered me so much, of just like he focuses so much more on the team play aspects, or like maybe his strengths are just more in the team play aspects. And while I'm able to beat him in lane, I'm for whatever reason not able to convert that into winning the game. But then when he would go internationally, it would like start to cause problems for the team, and like. And I'm not trying to say like C9 had problems at international only because of Fudge.
Sure.
Like I think it's just like everyone got more pressured, and then all of a sudden there's less resources to go around, and just like, like there was lots of things falling apart. But like his style that was so successful in North America and like was beating me, just like wasn't working as well on the world stage. And I just think laning becomes so important at international, and I think that I'm just a player. Like I don't know if it's like because it was my strength, I focused on it more, or I focused on it more, and that made it more my like I don't know, chicken and the egg. But I think that like because I am such a strong laning player, I'm actually able to stand up to the international teams in a way that a lot of players aren't.
By the way, since as you say, you don't like to flame people, I've got a better way to ask this question, which goes like this. Over the years that you were there was a lot of big name talent in top lane. Like, I'll read off some of the names. Like, there was people like Summit, huhi, Alfari, obviously Someday, who just retired recently. Bwipo still plays in the LCS. Obviously. These are enormous names. Some of these people have played like championships, international performances, right? It's rather than flame people, just pick a couple of names from this list. Like, who actually did catch your eye? Who did impress you that you've played in the LCS region? Which top laners for you make the grade?
It's interesting. I mean, Summit makes the grade for me. I think, like, while I think that, like like you said before, he is a bit of a villain character, he's really good at lane. Like, he is like really, really good at lane, and I think, like, I learned a lot playing against him over the years. I was able to match him at the end, but I think absolutely Summit was like a huge person in the scene. Like, he joined the league, smashed everyone, won MVP. That was sick. I mean, Impact's been around forever.
True,
I think I have to give Impact props. Like, he has his own style, and just like he's always been a really, really solid player. I mean, always might be, like, I don't know, like, everyone has ups and downs. But
Do you think that, does he have something unique to him as to why he's able to endure for so long? What about his game endures, do you think?
He's always been really smart about playing for his team, or like no matter what kind of position you put him in game. I mean, this was the most apparent during my rookie years on Cloud9, or my rookie year. I mean, even the following year, where it's like, even when I would get a lead in lane, he would find a way to, like, make a play to impact the map. And I think that is something that he's always been really good at. And I mean, it's also just like, to be a good player for that long, you have to keep getting better. And he's been able to do that. So I think like his like motivation or his drive has always been there, and like he's able to stay around because of that. Someday was really good, but I think, like, stylistically, for whatever reason, I always had a pretty easy time playing against him. Like, whenever we would match up, like I mentioned earlier that I would struggle with Broken Blade. It's like we had a bit of a rock paper scissors thing going on, where I would struggle with Broken Blade would struggle with Someday, and Someday would struggle with me. And like, I don't know what caused that, or like what exactly were the factors there, but I think he's a really good player. But I just personally never really felt that pressured when I played against him. I don't know. I mean, I think all of them. Like, I don't think there's a name on that list that, like, wasn't good at some point. I think they all had their moments.
Okay.
Like, when I first joined, huhi was like the player to beat on Echo Fox, which is like so weird. Like, it was like the one time Echo Fox was like amazing, and like huhi was like a huge part of that. And Alfari had his moments, and Bwipo's here, and he's looking really good most of the time, and just like, yeah, I don't know.
Right, what I would ask you of this is, obviously no one knows yet what it will be like to play for Dignitas, what the landscape will be, but I would just frame it this way. The one upside, I would say, I think every single team in the LCS should take in mind when they play in the following splits is not only because the league's been reduced in terms of number of teams, but if you just look at the results of the last 3 or 4 splits, dude, everything's to play for. Like, these splits are wide open once you get to the playoffs. In fact, I even think that's one of the cool things that's changed since when you began in the LCS. You began in the LCS where you used to play like the 18 BO1s into, like, well, it depends how you do in the playoffs. It could be like one series and you're done. Now, the postseason itself can be like 4 series. You can play like loads of games of best of 5s. The whole meta can change. You can have patches change between. Like, I actually feel like right now, if I'm anyone in any LCS team, everyone should think that there's a chance to do anything, to go to Worlds, to make a playoff run. Everything's possible, right? This isn't the old days where it's just like Cloud9 and TSM beat everyone and then everyone else has to come fourth, right?
Yeah, no, I think I mean, recent years have really shown that, like, I mean, Golden Guardians has been an example, Energy has been an example, just like anyone can win, you know. Like, I think, like, the regional gap has definitely been closing. Like, the competition is just so much closer than it used to be, and like the the top teams that exist just like aren't like really the same notch above that they used to be. And I mean, I personally am pretty confident that we can make a world's run on Dignitas.
What is it, if someone asked you, like earlier in the conversation, there was a world where no one knew would you be back this year or not? Maybe you'd have to wait till 2025 to play again, right? What are the short-term goals for Licorice? Like, do you have something in mind specifically? Is there something you're still tracking off the bucket list, or you need to reach this certain level again? What do you have in mind?
I mean, I'd love to like make a serious run at Worlds again. I think like I don't know what that would look like. But just like at the start of the year, the Talk on Golden Guardians was putting together some kind of super team to be able to make a run at Worlds, and I think that is something that I'd love to give a go at, because I think I'm a player that can do well internationally. So like it would feel like a waste to never give that a real go again. And outside of that, I don't know. Like I don't think. I mean, I'd love to win finals. I think that the experience of playing on that stage as opposed to just like in the LCS studio is so different, and it's really kind of magical actually, and just like feels awesome. So I want to go back there, but it's not like, I don't know. It's not like that's not like the thing that's going to get me up in the morning. I think it's just like I want to build a good team. I want to be a good teammate. I want to figure out how to actually like navigate it. And like I think last year I was able to play really well. Like if you take out Worlds, I think like the whole year I was able to play really well. And like even when things were going on, the team was kind of falling apart, I was able to like be solid and like keep up my level of play. And that wasn't actually good enough to have us like win the split or even go to finals or even like do well at Worlds. So I think it's like I want to figure out how to support a team to win and like be someone who can like help his team play better, because I think that has been something that I've been lacking over my career, and it's like seems really important.
Being as Golden Guardians isn't even in LCS. Surely you can tease us what the like super team lineup was going to be. Come on, it can't be a trade secret at this point. Sure, they don't even play League of Legends anymore. What was it going to be? Come on.
Yeah. So the lineup we were looking at was me, River, Jojo Berserker, and I think it was Vulcan.
Okay.
Support. So it's basically just an iteration on the roster C9 ended up with. And at this point, it was like early in the offseason, there was some talk that C9 was letting go of Berserker. Jojo was obviously looking for a team. And then Vulcan seemed to be like the best support option available. So that was the roster we were looking at.
So you went from an on-paper super team to no team at all. That's even more insane.
Yeah. No,
that's
so
ridiculous.
That was really. I mean, I don't know if we would have ended up with Berserker at least, because it seems like C9 changed their minds and ended up keeping him. But yeah, no, I was really excited.
It's nice to dream for a few days, though, isn't it? It's nice to at least think it's even possible. Yeah, of course. Right, at the end, I want to do some quick fire questions with you. So all I want is a name, but give me a reason as well. So who in your career do you think is the most skilled player you have played with?
River?
Okay, what for reason though?
I mean, I just think he's like, I don't know. I mean, I just think like he's the best player that I've played with.
Okay. What about who is the smartest player you've played with?
Okay, maybe River's the smartest player. And then if you're talking about skilled, who's the most skilled player I've played with? I think it's Sven. Sven back in 2020.
That might surprise people. Okay.
Yeah.
People don't know he was really talented though.
Yeah, he was insane back then.
What about who is the funniest player you've played with?
Niski.
Niski?
I think.
Explain his sense of humor then, because he has kind of an unusual sense of humor, right?
Yeah, I mean, Niski's just such a people person, and he's so ready to be like the butt of the joke. Like it's like that self-effacing humor that I think is just so like easy to have a good time around him. Yeah.
Who's the most clutch then? Who was the most clutch teammate?
Most clutch. Maybe. I don't know. That's a hard question. I want to say like maybe like Sven Skaren. I feel like he just like doesn't. He like never had bad games. Like he would always just show up and do his job no matter what.
Okay. I actually appreciate, by the way, if people watching this interview, one thing I have to give you full marks for is a lot of top laners can be quite bitter towards the jungler for obvious reasons. Licorice, you actually seem to be quite kind towards your junglers. You appreciate their role too in the game. So fair play.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good attitude to take, so I get more ganks.
True, I agree. All right, what about which player that you played with was the best teammate? Not literally as in the best player, but the best teammate, like the other things that go along with being a player. Who would fit this bill?
I think it's Niski again.
Okay.
I think he was just like, I mean, he was just really personable and really good at taking feedback, giving feedback, always in a good mood, always positive. I really like playing with him.
Who is the most underrated player you've played with?
Maybe Jose Diodo?
Oh, okay. On the FlyQuest days, right? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think we were all underrated on the FlyQuest days, so I think he's actually a really, really good player.
I've heard people say his mechanics are pretty good.
No, his mechanics are insane, and I think he was also actually a really good teammate. And he just like didn't like the team just kind of fell apart. So I think he was really underrated.
Fair play. Right, at the end of this interview, Licorice, do you have a final message for people? Do you have anyone you want to thank or say hello to?
I don't know. I'll just say hi to all the fans and like thanks. I mean, thanks to everyone who's helped make my career what it is. I think we've talked about a lot of them in the interview. And like to name a few, I think like Jack and Reaperd and Nero and Dayton and Sam and honorable mention for Doss as well, who was the top lane positional coach on Golden Guardians. I think that it's looking back, it's so easy to imagine how things could have gone differently for better or for worse. And I think that a lot of these people helped my career be more for the better side. So thanks so much to those guys.
In this esports world, it can seem like everyone's against you, but I've always got the Illuminati, my Patreon community, riding with me. And it is thanks to the support of the following people, this video and all of them on my channel are made possible. Matt Pugnaccio Rakula, Ahmed Haju, Frisky, Tosh, Jensen Gore, Animosity, Toucan, Tobias Bernasconi. If you've ever watched my videos, you know now I'm going to give a massive shout out to Jerky's Minion, the main man. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? You want teasers? Find out who the upcoming interview guests are. Maybe you want to ask me a question. I tend to answer them at length in my video AMA. Do you want to take part in one of those Dignitas discussions where we talk about what you're interested in esports? Well, if any of these perks or more appeal to you, put your money where your mouth is. Join the Illuminati today, where in the description box below is a Patreon link.